welcome to Scrappin with Sheri. I have opened my book to page 53 today and was starting to lay out things to make this into a double spread, and then I realized that I think page 54 in the book will actually be pretty complementary to page 53. So I'm going to do page 53 as a single page. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll move on to page 54 in the next video. Now, I'm going to tell you, usually I'll say, oh, this one looks hard, but it's not hard. This one is going to be pretty time consuming. And especially since I'm pulling a lot of different scraps to make this one work. So I'm going to be trying to minimize the use of paper as much as possible, so I'll have plenty left over for my next spread. That's going to be a big challenge in and of itself. But let's look at what we've got and let's cut a few things and see where we're headed. Now, this layout has a full sheet around the outside edge. That's where I run into a problem right off the bat, because I'm using my leftovers from Tropic Time. I have placed an order, but I haven't gotten my other papers in yet. And I really wanted to use this as my background here. But in order to make it work on the next page, I'm also going to need background there. So I'm going to need 8 strips total to go all the way around my 2-page spread. I hope that's making sense to you. If I had 2 sheets of this, I would just lay this down, layer everything on it as is. But because I don't have that, I'm going to cut this into strips to make my outside border here. Now, to make that outside border, I've got a 12-inch sheet of paper, and I need to make 8 strips. So I'm going to cut these at about 1.5 inches. I'm trying to do math in my head. It's not working this morning. Yep, 1.5 inches should get it. So I'm just going to cut this full sheet of 12 by 12 paper into 1.5 inches. Now remember, this is going to be enough to do this page and the next page because I want them to match each other. And I'm trying to use what paper I have very wisely to stretch it as far as possible. So all of these will be 1.5 inch strips, give or take. And I'm going to put 4 of those down for this layout. And then I'll save 4 for when we do the next page. I don't typically look ahead on the sketches, but I was trying to figure out if this one needed to be a double page or not, and it just seems to work this time. So this is going to go all the way around my outside edges. Now I'm going to look at this inner part right here, because there's an inner part, there's a map behind it, then there's the back sheet. This inner part is going to be an 8.5 by 8.5. Here again, I had a scrap, but I do have another full-size sheet of this as well. So I'm not as worried about stretching this one. So I'm going to cut this into an 8.5 inch square. And this will be the inner piece. And then there's a bunch of layering you're going to see on it. And then the piece behind that is 8 3/4 by 8 3/4. Let me see what we can do with this, because I may be able to just layer all this on here. And I think that might be what I do. You know, because I'm not doing it right. But is there really a right in scrapbooking? It's all very subjective, in my opinion. I can go ahead and put my strips on, use this gold shimmer as my background, and also make this the little border that goes around this. So that's what I'm going to do with this in an effort to continue to save paper. I want to tell you too, I appreciate those of you who reach out to me in comments and let me know things that are going on, what you're thinking, whatever. I enjoy corresponding with you on that. I know that we don't see each other face to face per se, but it's always fun to hear what you're thinking about the sketches and what you're doing in your own albums. I really like that part of what I do, Even if we can't get together face-to-face in scrapbook, I like knowing what's happening in your world. So keep those comments coming. That's a lot of fun. And it also keeps me energized to keep doing videos. Now I'm putting this outside border on. Remember, these are 1.5 inches. Had I had lots of full sheets of paper here, I would not have taken the time to cut these into strips. I would have just layered everything and been done with it. But this is going to work well and give me leftover to do another 2-page spread using this same background paper. And then we're just going to center this in the middle here as best we can. There's also going to be a lot of layering on this, so it's straight along the top, it's straight along the bottom. My sides are a little off, but we'll make that work. All right, let's work on this outside design. And I pulled the Mandevilla flower. I like it because it's a layered punch. It's got 2 different pieces to it. And I felt like it takes the color from here very nicely and brings it out. And it's a great contrast to the background I've chosen to do. Now, here's the deal. There are tons of little circles around here. That doesn't mean you have to put circles all over it. I really wanted to go with this Mandevilla because I think it picks out the look of what I'm trying to do here. And I've pulled, I don't know if I mentioned to you, this is a gold shimmer that's out of the Shimmer Pack right now. I pulled an orange shimmer and then just an aqua piece of regular cardstock to do this. And I did try punching 2 at a time, and it works pretty well, except they're trying to stick on the paper a little bit. But I am getting the double punch, so I'll probably keep going that way. And you're just going to get to see a sped up version of this because I'm going to do a lot of punching and a lot of taping. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over here. That may be a little too much for me. So let's just work from our corners. I'm using my repositionable tape on my silicone mat. I'm also not positive if I want them all exactly lined up or if I want to kind of make them wonky a little bit. I think I want to do some variation in them so they're not exactly the same. Now, if I go with this many of them, I've got a center one here. And, you know, it's not bad. I kind of like the busyness of it, I think, which is unusual for me. So let's just go with a little busy. Now, if I had my 13-inch mat over here, I would be lining that up at the 6-inch mark. Let's grab my 0 centering ruler. I've got that handy. And let's get that kind of centered, and that gives us some help in lining all this stuff up. So I'm going to the 0 here, and I'm just going to line that up. Because I'm going kind of wonky, it's a little bit harder, but it works. And you notice I'm not sticking the centers in yet. That's because I'm going to foam square those and make them pop a little bit. Maybe do some little extra to them. Now my flowers are a little bit bigger than the circles on the original sketch, so they are touching this border on the inside a little bit. That's okay to me, not a big deal. I kind of like pieces of my layouts touching anyway. I don't like things to feel disconnected, so that's good with me that it connects. Let's do that 0 centering along the bottom. Kind of get that center one here lined up. You'll notice I'm not doing anything exact. The biggest thing that I did was go ahead and lay the colors out which makes it easier for me to go back and pop those in without having to look at that pattern over and over again. Coming from a former kindergarten teacher, you know, these patterns are real important. I would tell the children it's important to learn how to do patterns, but I guess unless you do a lot of scrapbooking, it might not be as important in life as it is to me. I've got one piece right there where I cut off the edge of it. It's okay. I'm just sticking it down and you can't really tell that. I was trying to use all my little scraps up in making this page. Turn my page and do my corners and my 0 in the middle. Now, if you happen to be copying along with this and using the Tropic Time paper, we've had several different punches like sunburst, fireworks, things like that, that would also be pretty with this design and would mimic the look of the flowers a little bit more. I just really wanted to keep the tropical flower look in this, even though that's not necessarily what's on the page. I felt like it would be a good look for this particular layout. This would have been a good look for my all those floral pictures I had on some of the other pages I recently did, but this page is not going to hold a lot of pictures, and you know that causes me a little distress. So I'm really having to think about which pictures are going on which page. I hope to get more than 2 pictures on there, which is what they have in the sketch. But we'll see when we get to the picture part, right? Now to do the foam squares on here, I'm going to be using the smallest size of the foam squares. This sheet is actually out of the multi-pack of foam squares that has all the different sizes. But this is one of the older sheets that came out of our original foam square packs. And it just had 2 sizes. And one was this little bitty. And since I'm going to use so many of those, I pulled one of the older packs just to have a whole sheet of that. Now I'm foam squaring these right in the center of the flowers because that just gives it a little dimension. It allows a little bit of the background color to show through in places, but I feel like it just, I don't know, I think it just elevates the look of the flowers rather than having them straight down on the lower piece. And see if this is any easier. Putting the foam square onto the paper. That might be easier. Look at that. We all learned something together. Basically, I'm just centering that in the middle of those flowers. Always fun to try a new technique right in the middle of something, and hey, it works for me. I'm peeling these little backings off as I go too. I am ending up with them all over my floor, all over the table, everywhere. There's just little white backings everywhere. Yeah, I do think that was a quicker method to get all these little things tabbed. Now, bear in mind, if you do the basic design and you use the circles, you're not going to have all this. You could use a circle with some stickers in the middle. Lots of different ways you could do this layout and achieve this effect all around the outside. You know me, I just decided not to do something easy and to do something that was very time consuming. But I already like the effect of it, and we're not even finished. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to save these other flowers for when we get to the next page. Let's look at what else this sketch needs. We've got our flower border done, I'll say, but I may add some to it still. So we've got the outside edge done, but there are a couple of little color things we've got going on in here. There's a 3-inch, a 2-inch, a 2.5 inch. So we've got a 3, a 2.5, and a 2 there to make a stripe through the middle of this design. And I'm going to look at the colors that we could use for that and see what we can come up with. So because I'm working off of leftover pieces, I found these 2 papers that are full sheets. I've got this mat from the mat pack, and I'm going to cut it down to make it that center part. I looked at different colors here. I could use this yellow as the 3, but in doing that, it's too close to the gold, and I didn't really like that. So I'm going to use the orange as my 3. I'm going to use this teal color as my 2.5, and then the yellow as the 2. Yeah, I think that provides a good contrast between them. So, back to my trimmer. I need this one to be a 3 inch. I need this to be 2.5. And this is not quite a 5 inch card. So I'm going to cut my 2.5s this way. I know I confuse y'all so much when I use all these scraps all the time. But this is going to work. There's my 2.5s. And then I'm going to use the yellow as a 2 inch. Now, here's where I'm thinking right now I could have done something a little bit differently. I could have not put this 8.5 inch on yet. And then I could have taped all of this and cut it off on my trimmer at one time. I didn't do it that way, obviously. So we're going to have to cut this down to make it fit this. Now, this is an 8.5 inch square. So these 2 strips are going to need to be 8.5 inches long. And remember, you know, I cut something really badly. This is going to be a give or take 8.5 inches. And we may have to play with it to make it work. I've got 2 different size strips here. Trying to cut them together. If I can get my one working. Yeah, that's going to work. All right, so we're just going to layer the other 2 on that and then tape it all down at one time. And these 2, because they were matte pieces, it's not a full-length strip. Okay, so I'm taping that. I'll overlap this one. But remember that yellow is going to be in the middle of all this. So you're not really going to be able to see this overlap, I don't think. I do want it to reach all the way out to that edge. And then we'll put the yellow over the top of that. And we'll have all the basic design elements finished. It'll just be a matter of adding the pictures and finishing this out. It's a busy, busy page. And there's a little bit of space down at the bottom where that floral is still going to show through. And I am going to leave some of that because that's part of the reason I chose that paper. I like that flower print behind there. The design on this paper is not exactly even. So I was trying to line it up with the flowers. That's not working. But I like this look. Now we need to pull pictures and then decide how we're going to arrange our pictures. And then we'll go back and add some embellishments. So let me grab my pictures. So in pulling the pictures for this layout, I have pulled a couple of mats from the mat pack that goes with Tropic Time. And I did pull the greens that kind of match this outside edge. I am going to make these work. I've got this one that's actually a journaling mat. But I have a full picture I can put on that. What I did was I put 2 pictures on one, developed them on my Epson printer. And this mat is a little bit bigger than what it calls for. It calls for a 5.5 by 3 3/4 photo. And then I've got these 2 smaller ones that I developed. I'm going to trim those down and see how we can work those around. This was our I probably, if I'm titling this, which I'm not sure if I will or not, I would call this the first meal in paradise, because we had been traveling all day long. We were exhausted, we were hungry, and we got there and we went to a buffet just to get something to eat after we took a little nap. Now, when I say we, I'm talking about my friend who traveled with me, who's also an advisor. This is when we went to Puerto Vallarta. So that's what these pictures are from. I'm working furiously to get this album completed so I can start traveling again and do some more albums. But I've got this. I have the picture of the hotel itself, which I haven't included anywhere else. So I want to make sure that right up front I get the picture of the hotel in there. And then that first really good meal. Now I'm cutting these mats down a little bit, just to make it a little bit smaller on the page. Because of the way I'm facing, I'm probably going to keep that as is, that direction. Now, in cutting those mats down, surprisingly, I got them the same size. So I'm going to piece them back together. This one, I'm going to stick this picture on, covering all this white space, and then I'm going to cut it down a little bit as well. We just don't need all the extra green. A lot going on this page. Every time I use this trimmer now, I'm thinking about that new one that's coming out in July that I can't wait to get my hands on. All right. So, in looking at the sketch, this one is slid kind of this way. Not quite all the way to the edge, but pretty close. And I'll probably go ahead and bring it all the way over. I could even stick it underneath the edge of this flower right here, if I can get the edge of it up. And then I can put these two over the corner of that picture. So instead of getting 2 larger pictures on there, I've managed to get 4 smallers. That's really because of the way I developed them, though. That's not necessarily an easy fix if you're trying to get more pictures onto this layout. But it's going to work for me. I'm just kind of layering these 2 together now. You know, I've heard from several of you say, oh, that was very time consuming, but the effect was worth it. I do think this one's a really pretty layout. The pictures don't hurt it at all, that's for sure. But it is going to be a nice layout. All right, so 4 smaller pictures on there. We've got all the basic things. There is a banner here, several embellishment things. Let's look at what sticker embellishments we have left from Tropic Time. I don't have a lot left. Take me away, these moments. Oh, unwind would be a good one because that's where I was at this point in time. So I'm going to use this. I need to pull some color to back this, and I'm thinking either the orange or the teal. I've got a little bit of this orange left over, and I think we could get a banner out of that pretty easily. Now, I've had some people ask me at times, when you scrapbook, do you just leave all the mess out and then you come back to it and you just keep working from it? I don't do it that way. When I finish one page, I go ahead and I clean up my mess. Now, I'm going to grab my banner punch so we can do the punch on this particular strip. Okay, so we've got the banner punch. I'm just going to feed that strip in. I can feel it feeding crooked. Chop that. Not exactly straight, but I'm okay with it. I'm going to stick this unwind on there and then cut it down to the right size I need it. I'll do that with the little personal trimmer. these words go in all crooked ways, it makes it a little harder to line it up for me. It kind of gives me a little bit of eye problem to try to line that up exactly. And I'm going to put that right in here. I'm going to scoot it down just a touch and maybe even slide it that way a little, just so it'll show up a little bit better. I'm going to add a couple of foam squares to that to bring it off my page. And the sketch shows embellishments in several different spots. I do plan to journal, and you'll see that in the photos that pop up with the page. And I'm going to do those on the right now little sticker strips and add those here just like they did, because I do like that look. So for all practical purposes, this page is finished. Look for the completed page with any extra embellishments I might throw on at the end of the video. But join us next time when we go to page 54 to make a coordinating page for this. And until I see you next time, happy scrapping.